Welcome to session 1 of our series, Sink into Support. This whole series is designed to explore what it literally, on a physical level, feels like and can look like to not have to hold yourself up anymore, or even if you are holding yourself up, to do so with a literal support beneath or behind your body. And so every single session in this series will be actually using a wall. So it will be helpful if you have a wall that you can use and some space around you for this class and all other classes. And in this first session, we are exploring permission to pause. So we will be feeling our way into moments in between one pose and the next, instead of rushing from one thing to another as we so often do in our daily lives. This is your opportunity to give yourself permission to pause, allowing this whole class to be a pause and little micro moments in between. So with that, I invite you to find a shape of your choice. I'm gonna find my way into a child's pose. However, you might decide to stay in a seated shape, or maybe even join me in a child's pose. And child's pose, if you decide to join me, could look like taking the knees as wide as the mat or thereabouts. It doesn't have to be as wide as the mat. Maybe even allowing your toes to touch back behind you, and then allowing the hips to sink back toward the heels. And then you could explore walking your hands forward, maybe allowing your forehead to come down to the earth. If it doesn't feel safe to have your gaze down, you can always choose to leave your gaze lifted, perhaps by stacking your fists underneath your chin, resting your chin, or even resting your forehead and just keeping your eyes open. If child's pose does not feel welcome at all, I invite you to find a comfortable seated shape that works for your body. And you will have some opportunities to utilize blocks in this class, and so if you have 1 or 2 blocks, you might grab them, have them nearby. You don't need them just yet, but we will in a little bit. Taking this as your first invitation to pause. You might start to feel into your physical body, noticing how you feel in this shape that you have chosen for yourself. Does this shape feel welcome? Because if not, you always reserve the right to change your mind. Everything in this class is an invitation. You do not have to force yourself into shapes that do not feel welcome, that do not feel safe in your body. You can choose always to do something different than what I'm doing, or to skip a shape entirely. This is your practice. This is your time to pause. And so with that, I invite you to take another couple breaths here. I'm going to read to you a quote by Kimberly Ann Johnson. And she writes, "Maybe your capacity is not actually lower these days, but your capacity to override and push through is lower." Maybe your capacity these days is not actually lower, but maybe the capacity to push through and to override is what's lower. And so as we pause and move and breathe and feel in this class today, I invite you to honor your capacity in this moment. And that requires us to stop and feel, to notice, to pay attention. And so may you use this class as that pause, as the stopping, as the paying attention. And you might even create an intention for this class, such as, I honor my capacity. I honor my capacity. And so if you're ready to begin moving, I invite you to inhale. And if you're in child's pose, start to walk your hands forward, lift your gaze, and maybe even shift yourself forward into a tabletop. If you're in a seated shape, you could choose to take a tabletop from your seated, you could choose to take a cat-cow from your seated shape, or you could choose to meet us in tabletop. And you might decide to just move intuitively, perhaps moving in a way that just feels natural and organic to you. And this is always available to you. Or you might decide to inhale and allow your stomach to draw forward, allowing the spine to draw forward, maybe even rolling the shoulders open and back. And then with your exhale, you might explore curling your spine back. Maybe even tucking your chin, tucking your tailbone a little bit, noticing what feels right here. So you choose as we move for the next 4 rounds of breath. Maybe you move intuitively, there's no right or wrong. Or maybe you move rhythmically in this cat-cow. You'd choose. This is your body, your time. What do you have capacity for in this moment? Last breath wherever you are. And when you're ready, you might begin to sink back into a child's pose. Maybe your toes touch back behind you. And this time, you might leave your hands outstretched as we breathe in at center. And as you exhale, you might begin to walk your hands over to the left or just to one side. As the lower half of your body can stay in child's pose, and the top half of your body, your arms and your torso, can explore this movement over toward the left. It really doesn't matter which side you start on. I just am being specific so that you know where I'm at. So you could choose to start on the right side, if that is what's calling to you right now. But as you find your way over into this lateral stretch, take notice that you can move into this shape as deeply or as shallow as you desire. So you control how much you're in this shape. If it's feeling like, whoa, I went a little bit too far, you can walk your hands a little bit closer to center, maybe somewhere in between where you are now and center. As we take our last breath here, you might even send a direct inhale into the open side of your body. And then you can choose to stay here as long as you want. And when and if you're ready to move back to center, you could lift your head, walk your hands back to center. Pause for just one breath in between, noticing how does one side of my body feel in comparison to the other. Not that it's good, bad, better, worse, just different. And then if you're ready for the next side, you could lift your head and then begin walking your hands over to the opposite side. You might even allow your forehead to come down, resting wherever it naturally falls. Noticing that this side could have very different sensations than your previous side, and that's okay. And I welcome you to take another 2 rounds of breath here. Perhaps even sending a direct breath into the open side of your body. Can you imagine that you can breathe directly into that side of your body that's open? And after your second breath, or when you decide you're ready to leave this shape, you can lift your head to look at your hands. Walk your hands back to center. And then you might decide to just return back to child's pose for another breath or 2. Or if you are really ready to leave child's pose, you could shift yourself forward and come into a tabletop. And so whether you're in child's pose or a tabletop, can you just pause for a moment and feel? Pause to notice. Pause to witness. Pause to experience before we rush on. And you could choose to stay in child's pose even longer if you're really enjoying this pause. Or if you'd like to take a downward facing dog, you might begin to walk your hands forward and tuck your toes. And I like to start the first down dog of the class with bent knees, and I'll show you what that looks like. So with our fingers spread wide, really plugging and sinking down into the support that's beneath you, feeling that your hands are solid and secure. And when you have that, you can tuck your toes, breathe in, and lift your hips up towards the sky. And here, we can keep our knees bent as you perhaps explore sending the shoulders back, really elongating through the arms and taking up space around you, if that feels welcome. And then option here to lengthen one heel down towards the floor so you could lengthen your right heel down as your left knee stays bent, or vice versa. Maybe start to pedal out the feet, switching from one side to the other as we're here for just another 2 or 3 rounds of breath. And if down dog really doesn't feel welcome, you could return to tabletop or child's pose, the 2 previous shapes that we just did. And also know that this isn't about perfection. This is about experiencing and feeling. So I invite you to just notice what's present for you right here. Are your arms getting warm? Maybe burning a little bit from holding up your body? Can you tune into your hands, fingers spread wide, plugged into the floor, and the support that the floor is providing you in this moment. And then when you're done, you might begin to lower your knees back down to the earth. And if it feels welcome to roll out your wrists, option to do so for just a moment. And then from tabletop, I'm going to move my body just so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit better, but you can stay where you are. And so from our tabletop, you might choose to extend your right leg, planting your right foot on your mat. And your right toes might face forward as your foot finds traction. So check in and notice, am I feeling secure? And if not, how can you adjust your stance so that you do feel secure? And take a moment to kind of feel into that. And then you might stay right here, perhaps even rocking back and forth, feeling into your body. Maybe stillness is preferable to you, and that's okay. You could choose to do that as well. And then option, if you'd like to explore a twist, is to keep your left hand rooted down into the floor as we breathe in. And exhale, peel the right shoulder back as we reach the right hand up towards the sky. Maybe you stay right here. Maybe you reach back down to the floor and reach back up. You could even imagine that you're holding a beach ball to your chest and reach past your left shoulder, kind of needling through, and then inhaling right back up. Taking stillness or movement for a few more breaths, whichever one you decide. All right, last one here. And then we'll release the right hand down to the floor and let me move back just a little bit so that the bottom half of our body stays the same. But now, can you bring some engagement into your core? And this is to support our lower back and to keep our spine safe, especially our lumbar spine. And you might start to walk your hands forward and returning back to the plugged in feeling and sensation that we were just in downward facing dog. Maybe your fingers spread wide, maybe you press the palms into the earth as we allow the forehead to come down towards the mat. So breathing in here, knowing that you can leave this shape whenever you want. And if this does feel welcome, can you feel into your body what's present? Last breath here, in and out. And then continuing to find some engagement in your core to stabilize your spine. You might begin to lift your head to look at your hands and then walk your hands back toward you and draw the right leg back in, finding your way back into tabletop. Option to move in any way that feels welcome. Feeling into your right leg and your left leg. And then when you're ready for the next side, you could extend your left leg in the exact same manner that we just did. And again, you might decide to rock back and forth. Maybe You prefer stillness. Wherever you're at, can you just take a moment to explore? And continuing to honor your capacity for this moment. So the exploration is our opportunity. It's the practice of pausing and noticing. And that is where we gather information about how we're feeling, our energy levels, what we need, what we want, what we don't want, so that we can honor our capacity. And so if you are ready to find a twist here, you might leave your right hand planted on the floor and start to peel the left shoulder back and reach the left arm up towards the sky. Now you could choose to stay right here, or maybe you hold the beach ball to your chest as your left arm reaches past, kneeling through, and then reaching right back up. Taking a few more at your own pace, in a way that feels right to you. As we take one more full breath here. Breathing right back up. And then releasing the left hand down to the earth if you feel complete. And then your choice here, if you'd like to take this modified puppy pose of walking the hands forward, can you exhale until you feel your core engaging? And again, this is to stabilize our spine. And then continuing to breathe and continuing to maintain this engagement in your core. It doesn't have to be 100%. You could do like 50 to 70% engagement. It's just enough to stabilize. And then if you'd like, you could start walking your hands forward. And then lowering your chest down, lowering your forehead down. And so because the core is engaged, your chest won't really touch the floor. It might not be, but your forehead can touch the floor if that feels supportive. Not that it has to. As we take another full round of breath here, staying with our breath, breathing in, breathing out. And if you feel complete here, because you could stay longer, then you might start to lift your head, walk your hands back, and draw the left leg in back to center. Option to move, or you might find a child's pose. Taking a moment. Where's your capacity at for this moment? Last round of breath, breathing in and out. Okay. You might begin to shift yourself forward and take a moment to decide if you'd like to pop up into a downward facing dog. And so if you would, you could start to tuck your toes, lift the hips, and feel your way through your down dog. Noticing, does this one feel different than your previous side or the previous time that we did it? Is the body feeling a bit more open perhaps? Does the shape feel a bit more familiar? And if you're ready, you could bend into both knees, take the gaze toward the hands, and we'll begin to walk the feet forward, and I'll meet you in a forward fold. So you can adjust your stance as needed. Maybe the feet are hip distance apart. Maybe they are a little bit wider, maybe even as wide as your mat if the body is asking for a bit more room in this moment. And then you might allow your neck to release. With your next inhale, option to bring your hands to your shins and lengthen through your arms as your spine lengthens, finding a halfway lift. Exhale to fold right back down when you're ready for it. And then if you're ready to rise, you could inhale and rise all the way up to standing. All right. We are going to find our way to the wall, and so here's a moment to kind of adjust. Now you could shift your mat to the wall, and it doesn't have to necessarily be like specifically touching the wall, but you might want it a little bit closer for our next shapes that we're going to do. Okay, so our mat is adjusted, and this is where blocks can really come in handy. And if you don't have a block, then you could grab a maybe a really thick book with a hard cover, or a maybe even a hydro flask. I've seen people use those. And so from our standing Tadasana, I invite you to come into just a mountain pose, our Tadasana, that feels welcome in your body. So you might have your feet hip distance apart. You might take a moment to feel your toes underneath you. Perhaps you even allow your toes to spread out and take up a bit more space. And if it feels better in your body to take up a wider stance, maybe even taking your feet as wide as your mat, that is also a choice. There's no right or wrong here. And from your soles of your feet, you might begin to trace some awareness, feeling the support beneath your feet and moving up your legs, up your spine, maybe even allowing your spine to grow a little bit taller here. If it feels welcome, you might even roll your shoulders back, allowing the chest to open up a little bit as your neck also finds a bit of space. Breathing in here. We'll begin to move into our warrior two. And so keeping your left foot forward, you could begin to step your right foot back. And with our left foot forward, toes facing the front of the mat, you might start to blade your back foot so that your right foot is coming in at an angle. And then when you're ready, you could bend into your left knee, and you might even reach your arms out into a T. So our back leg is nice and strong, feeling the support beneath the right foot, beneath the right heel, noticing this nice, strong line of energy from the right hip down into the right foot. As we bend into our left knee, finding warrior two, taking a breath in here and exhaling out when you're ready. Inhale, keeping the bottom half of your body the same. You might start to reach the arms straight up. And exhale, right hand can come to the right leg. Maybe you lean back for reverse warrior, opening up through the left side of your body. And exhale, right back to warrior two. All right, so we're gonna take that again, but this time we're gonna be adding on a half moon pose, a supported half moon pose, which means you're gonna need a lot of space right in front of you. And so if you notice that you don't have the space available, we might need to take our block, bring it with us, and step towards the back of your mat. Finding warrior two right here. So now we have a little bit of space to reach. So if you're ready, I'll meet you in warrior two. We'll take one breath here, in and out. Maybe you inhale and reach the arms up. Exhale, option to take your right hand to your right leg and lean the left arm all the way back, opening up through the left side body. And starting to windmill your hands forward, you could bring your left hand to your block. So the block could be placed on the outside of your left foot, but have a hold on it so that you can pick it up. As we start to hop the right foot in, you're gonna move your block forward, and then using the wall to support you. So my body is totally against the wall. The block can stay underneath your shoulder. As you start to lift up through your right leg, and we're creating kind of this 90-degree angle here. So that if you were to look down at your right leg, you could see your toes, maybe even wiggle them. And you could leave your right hand on your right hip, or you might peel the right shoulder open and bring the right arm to the wall as well. Now, notice your left knee. Notice if it's locked out and if that causes pain. If it doesn't cause pain, you could choose to stay there, but if there is pain, maybe hyperextension, you could add a micro bend into your left knee. Option to take the gaze down to your left hand if that feels supportive, or you might look up at your right thumb or even straight ahead. So this is our supported half moon pose. Breathing in and noticing the support of the wall behind you. So even though we're still doing work to hold ourselves up, even though there's still muscle engagement, we're still breathing, we're still reaching, the wall is there as a support. So can you allow yourself to sink into the support behind you? And then when you feel ready to release, your top arm can windmill forward, coming down to the earth, maybe taking your left hand off of the block and allowing your right foot, your right leg to come down as well. Coming into a forward fold. Whoa, can you feel that difference? Can you feel the difference between your left leg and foot and your right leg and foot? What do you feel? Inhale, option to take a halfway lift, hands to the shins, and lengthening up. And then exhale to fold right back down. Inhale to rise when you're ready, rooting into the feet, bending the knees, and reaching up. Exhale, hands can come right down. Pause for just one moment. Giving yourself permission to pause, checking in. What do you notice? And using what you find as feedback to check in with your capacity for this moment, for this season of your life, for this day. And then when you're ready for the next side, you can take your block or your book or your hydro flask, whatever you have, and move it over to the right side. And we'll move to the back of our mats and stepping the left foot forward. Sorry, the right foot. So now we're lunging into the right knee. So take a moment to get set up. Your right toes could face the top of your mat as your left foot blades inward. Feel into the support beneath your left foot. Notice that you are solid and stable. And if you don't feel solid and stable, can you adjust the positioning of your body so that you do feel stable? Maybe your foot doesn't like to be bladed in. Maybe it needs to be more in alignment, running the width of your mat. That's also an option. And so as you lunge into your right knee, finding your warrior two, option to take your arms out, breathing in and out. Always at your own pace. Can you feel the strong line of energy from your left hip all the way down into your left heel? Feeling the support of the floor beneath you, holding you up. Option to inhale and reach the arms up. And exhale if you'd like to reverse your warrior, left hand to the left leg, leaning back and opening up through the right side of your body. Inhale and exhale here. And then if you're ready, you can start to windmill your hands forward, bringing the block right underneath your hand. Left hand can come to the hip if you want. And then we'll start to hop the left foot forward. Go ahead and take the block forward a little bit with you until you're far enough forward so that you can stably, strongly reach the left foot up, float it up, creating again this long line of energy from the left hip through the left heel. Now you could choose to leave your left hand on the hip, or you could choose to peel the left shoulder open and bring the back of the left hand, the left arm to the wall. And again, maybe you micro bend into the right knee, or explore what that could feel like. And choose where you want to place your gaze. And breathe. Breathing into your body, feeling, noticing, witnessing. For one last breath. And then if you feel complete, your top arm can windmill forward, allowing the left leg to come down. And I'll meet you in a forward fold. Permission to pause here. Permission to witness and observe. If you'd like to take a halfway lift, you might bring your hands to your shins and lengthen up through the spine. And exhale to fold right back down. And an inhale to root into the feet and rise all the way up. Exhale, maybe you bring your hands down to heart center. Pausing for one more breath. And then, if you'd like, you could meet me on the floor, and you might need to readjust some things, but those things could look like adding a blanket as we prepare to come to the wall. I like to have a blanket underneath my spine, and so you might set up a blanket right here, kind of the short end of your blanket touching the wall, and enough blanket to lay your body on. And you might also like to have a second blanket, and so whether you have a blanket or a towel, you can go ahead and grab what you need. Or if you're not sure if you'll need it, you can just set it next to you. And we'll come here to the wall. If it feels okay for your body, you can bring one hip to the wall. And then coming down onto your elbows, start to shift your body up so that you're resting with your legs up the wall. And here, I welcome you to just take a pause yet again. Taking this opportunity to just let the body settle. And if it feels safe, two options here. You might begin to bend the knees and pull the knees in toward the chest and just hug them in. Hugging your knees in toward your chest. This is option one. Option two is to allow the knees to separate and the feet to plant on the wall. And this is a supported squat pose, or malasana. And this is where it might feel a bit more safe to have a blanket. And so here you could utilize a blanket to cover yourself up. Providing a little bit of safety, a little bit of protection and covering. And if this shape, again, malasana, our squat that I'm in right now, does not feel welcome at all, and you're like, no thanks, that's okay. We can return back to pulling the knees in toward the chest. Just like this. And that is welcome as well. There is no better pose here. There is no perfection or right or wrong. All there is you and your body and the messages, the sensations that your body sends you. And these messages, via physical sensations, are what clue us in on what we need, on what feels safe or doesn't feel safe, or what feels interesting or maybe even relieving. This is what tells us, these sensations are what tell us what we might lean into, what we have capacity for, and also what we don't have capacity for, and maybe we need to lean out of or lean away from. Both are valid. But the only way that we hear these messages is if we pause long enough to listen. And as we take our last breath here, whether you have your knees in toward your chest or you have the feet planted on the wall in malasana, squat pose, I invite you to shift into our second shape here at the wall. And that is, since I'm already in malasana, squat, I'll just show you option one from here. You could leave your left leg resting on the wall, maybe even moving it in a little bit so that your knee is over your hip, but you don't have to. And then allowing your right leg to open up, lengthen through down the wall, and open up so that you can allow your inner right thigh to find a stretch. So this is option one. Option two is to pull your knee in toward your chest or keep it there already. And then extending your leg outward. You might even take your block, hopefully it's close like mine is, and allow your leg to rest on your block. And after your third breath, you might bend your right knee and draw both knees back in toward the chest, taking a moment to feel. And then option here to come back into Malasana if you liked that on the other side. And then you could extend your left leg out. So the difference is subtle, but option one is from Malasana, and you're now on our right side. So the right foot is still connected to the wall, and the leg, the right knee, is leaning open. So it's a bit of a wider stance here compared to having your right knee in toward the chest and then allowing the left leg to open. So slight difference, but it could feel really like a big difference in your body. We'll just explore this for another 3 breaths. And then after your 3rd breath, you could choose to stay here longer, or you could decide to bend your left knee and draw both knees back in toward your chest. Just hugging yourself inward. And here I invite you to allow the legs to extend up the wall. You might take your blanket and drape it over you if that feels protective or supportive. Or you might leave your blanket where it is. Maybe you don't want it. And so this is just one option. Having our legs up the wall is very down-regulating to our nervous system. However, everybody's different. And if having your legs up the wall really doesn't feel down-regulating, it doesn't feel supportive, you don't have to do it. I invite you to choose any other resting shape that does feel safe and welcome to your body. So taking a moment to decide, do I want to be here, or would I like to be somewhere else as we enter into our final time of rest? You could choose to lay on your stomach, your side, your back. You could even choose to stay in a seated shape. Whatever you decide, I honor your choice. And I invite you to be here for the next 4 minutes or so. And I'll keep track of time so that you can just rest and be in the moment. And I'll let you know when this time of rest is complete. You might begin to notice your body and where you're resting, feeling the support beneath you. Maybe it's the support beneath your back, or maybe it's your legs resting on the wall, or anywhere else in your body where you feel your body connecting to what's holding you up. And you can decide here if this time of rest is not complete yet for you and you would like to stay here longer, you can. But if you do feel complete and your legs are up the wall, you might begin to wiggle your toes and maybe start to draw the feet back down and pull the knees in toward your chest. If you're laying on your back, you might roll to one side. As we take our time, slowly coming back up. And then you might press yourself up into a seated shape. Taking a moment to arrive. And if it feels welcome, you might bring your hands to heart center. And then you might join me for one collective breath. Perhaps starting by exhaling your air out and then breathing in together. Thank you for joining me in our first session of sinking into support. I encourage you to continue to check in with your capacity and honor it. Honor your need to rest or to pull back. Honor your need to expend energy and explore and be curious, whatever it is that your body is asking for. I hope that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thank you.